Ja, frid och shalom älskade vänner. Idag är det alltså den 20/10. Här är morgonnyheterna, håller jag på att säga. Men klockan är ju sent då, men vi har ju suttit uppe flera nästan nätter och vi har ju annat att sköta om också så att säga. Så det var skönt att sova ut i natt och vaknade 8:30 vi. Och nu är vi på våra vaktposter igen och här följer då morgonnyheterna och det är 2 videos som kommer efter mig och jag talar nu som väldigt bra tar upp med svensk text vad som händer nu. Då kan jag säga att under natten och sena timmarna här så är det ju en väldig pådrag av antisemitism över hela världen, precis som vi förstod att det skulle bli. Och flera länder och terrororganisationer sluter sig nu alltså till det här. Och den här lögnen om den här bombningen i sjukhuset här har ju satt fart på hela världen. Ja, käre Jesus. Det var en tung dag igår med mycket bön och mycket kamp, så man är ganska trött. Men vi är redo, hoppas ni är redo. Vi ber för Israel. Gud välsigne Israel. Gud välsigne sitt folk. Och vi ber om en frälsning ska dra genom hela Mellanöstern, även till araberna, så att de får krossade hjärtan och förstår att det här håller ju aldrig med. Detta hat emot människor hela tiden och förintelse och allt vad man pratar om. Det är ju inte det rike precis som Jesus står för. Utan vi ber att Jesus ska komma snart. Ja, håll till godo nu med de nyheter som kommer. Lyssna gärna på de här 2 videorna för de tar upp allt som händer just nu på ett kortfattat och mycket bra sätt. Särskilt då den andra videon som är lite mer kritisk till vad som händer, som vad vi tror faktiskt att det är ett rävspel bakom här nu som leder till så småningom en 2-statslösning, precis som Bibeln säger. Så vi ska vara väldigt vakna och inte bara lyssna på en källa utan hör på flera och jämför och bed framförallt nu så vi inte blir bedragna mitt i det här spelet som pågår. I Jesu namn Guds välsignelse här nu från oss Olins här i Göteborg. Vi hörs. Amen.
War on Israel and a major attack has taken place. The United States announced that it had met the first attack. This attack mobilized Israeli warplanes. Dozens of fighter jets were mobilized, the first time such a large number had been mobilized since the first day of the war. At least 40 fighter jets spotted the spot where the order to attack was given. The target is the Gaza Strip. With the outbreak of tensions, activity was detected over Lebanon, and Lebanon became the second target after Gaza. One of the most critical news came from Germany. German special forces said that Germans were still in the Hamas area. The special forces officially announced their mobilization to Palestine. The most important events of the last days took place today. Let's move on to our video without wasting time. First of all, in the early hours of the morning, the intelligence service of the Israeli forces announced that the location of a senior Hamas terrorist organization official had been identified. Senior Hamas officials are communicating with terrorist organizations in different countries and coordinating a massive attack on Israel. You will understand the reason for this explanation very well in the following part of the video. The location of the senior official was detected, but the meeting between the leaders of the terrorist organization ended, and the first step of the attack on Israel began. Intelligence reports and coordinates were shared with Israeli pilots. Within a very short time, dozens of Israeli warplanes were spotted flying over the Gaza Strip. After the first sortie was completed and the targets were identified, the sequential or massive air attack officially began. Israeli warplanes carried out numerous strikes on gathering areas, Hamas tunnels, missile launching pads, intelligence centers, and command centers where senior terrorist officials were located. The warplanes also destroyed hundreds of mortar launching points from which Hamas attacks Israeli tanks. Most of the strikes were carried out in the Sujayai area. In addition, while the airstrikes continued, critical news came from Israeli intelligence. As a result of the attack by Israeli warplanes, it was reported that Rafat Harb Hussein, the head of the Hamas military branch in the Rafah region, was also neutralized. Shortly afterwards, U.S. intelligence also confirmed the neutralization of senior officials. While the Hamas terrorist organization suffered heavy losses in the Gaza Strip, Hezbollah members carried out mortar attacks near the Metula area on the Lebanese border. The Hezbollah organization tried to draw the attention of the Israeli army to the north and to reduce the pressure on Hamas. In this process, Israeli tanks moving towards the Metula region were deployed to safe points. Israeli unmanned aerial vehicles took action to detect the points where the attack was organized. Unmanned aerial vehicles detected that the attack was carried out from Hezbollah outposts near Metula. The locations of the outposts were sent to the Israeli tank unit. Within a short time, a heavy attack on Hezbollah outposts began. Israeli tanks destroyed the 2 outposts where the attack was organized by launching a comprehensive attack. With the destruction of the outposts, members of the Hezbollah terrorist organization attacked from the Hardov point. A group of 15 people opened fire on Israeli forces on the borderline. With the attack of Hezbollah, Israeli forces began to counterattack the borderline, and it was observed that Hezbollah members began to flee. The members of the terrorist organization continued to flee to the Lebanese border, but 2 Israeli drones detected the location of the group members about 15 minutes later, and the attack began. As a result of the attack, 11 members of the 15-member group were neutralized and 4 people were wounded. In the midst of the fiercest fighting in recent times, the big news came from the United States warship. Because Hamas and Hezbollah have lost so many lives, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, senior terror officials have held many meetings with the leaders of other groups. In the meantime, the Iranian-backed Houthi terrorist group in Yemen fired a large number of missiles and dozens of drone attacks on Israel from Yemen. The United States warship realized that the missiles were fired from Yemen, moving northwards through the Red Sea and approaching Israel. All of the missiles and drones were destroyed in the air by the United States Navy. The news that the attack had been called off was given by Pentagon spokesman Patrick Ryder. Ryder, senior Israeli and U.S. officials held an emergency meeting about the attack from Yemen. He said that strict measures will be taken against attacks by terrorist organizations and that attacks will be deterred. After the statements made, I think that airstrikes will be carried out in Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon, where terrorist organizations are deployed. However, after the statements made, it has become quite clear to me that the biggest attack will be on Iran. We know that the attacks on Israeli territory are organized by terrorist organizations such as Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthi. In addition, many terrorist organizations have announced their support for the Hamas organization. What these terrorist organizations have in common is that they are all supported by Iran. For this reason, I think that Israel will target Iranian points with a larger operation than ever before. There is no official statement in this process, but as I mentioned, I can say that the statements made indirectly target Iran. The last and most important news came from Germany. It has been determined that Germany has placed special forces very close to Israel. We know that there were Germans in Palestine during this period, and Hamas banned the exits. German security forces stated that KZSK special operations units and specially trained soldiers from the GSG-9 unit were deployed to Cyprus. After these announcements, a great mobilization started to take place in Cyprus. In this process, it has become certain that ISIS-affiliated terrorist groups in the north of Israel have launched an attack. The ISIS terrorist organization attacked with a large number of missiles to destroy Israeli gas towers in the Mediterranean Sea. Near these gas towers are 2 aircraft carriers of the United States. The missiles launched by ISIS were destroyed by Israeli air defense systems. Reports say that the gas towers were targeted, but the U.S. aircraft carriers, as I mentioned, are located near the gas towers. Several sources claimed that U.S. aircraft carriers were targeted in the process. No official statement has been made, and I will inform you again when an official statement is made. On the other hand, there is no way these missiles can hit aircraft carriers deployed in the region. Aircraft carriers are equipped with many advanced radars and dozens of air defense systems. In this process, I can say that it does not seem possible for the ISIS terrorist organization to destroy the gas towers or aircraft carriers in the region. Last-minute reports on the most critical day of the last days continue to come. As the tension in the region increased with each passing hour, the Israeli Air Force put terrorist organizations under great pressure from the air. Senior officials of Hamas were the target of airstrikes in this process. These attacks will create major problems for Iran-backed groups. With the increase in the intensity of the operations, ISIS and Houthi terrorist organizations also declared war on Israel. While the first attack came from the Houthis, the United States warships stopped the attacks. The cessation of these attacks caused Israeli warplanes to take action. The second attack was organized by the ISIS terrorist organization, but it was not successful. The Iron Dome stopped all attacks on gas towers or aircraft carriers. We will see what will happen in the coming days. We have come to the end of another video.
And all of this, what's seen as, from a real topical level of support, is actually, when you break it down, not a lot of support. If they give military weapons, but then say you can't do this and that, the Israeli military is poised and ready to annihilate Hamas. Who's holding that back? The Biden administration is holding that back. Let's break it down. They had a 7-hour, Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, had a 7-hour meeting in Israel's war cabinet just yesterday, trying to convince Israel not to go in and to resupply Hamas. Okay, when I say resupply Hamas, of course Anthony Blinken did not say, please resupply Hamas. He used very sophisticated language saying, please bring humanitarian aid into Gaza. Humanitarian aid has always, and by the billions and millions of dollars gone into Gaza, has always been taken by Hamas, and Hamas has not been eradicated from Gaza. Any aid that goes into Gaza will be taken by Hamas, hands down, and Anthony Blinken knows that. So $100 million was just given by the American administration to go directly in for refueling Hamas's war, brutal war, ISIS-like war against Israel. And that's what the president had to bring to Israel right off the top. Guys, and if they don't, this is the deal, if they don't follow those demands by the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, then he's holding back American support, blocking items like the bunker buster bombs that Israel desperately needs in order to go and make an invasion into Gaza. The U.S. has been a massive support behind the IDF and the military here for a long time. But when it becomes really unhelpful is when you have a ground invasion ready to go in, and then the Secretary of State comes in and says, stop, we need to get essentials in, and we need to help these people that voted in Hamas to start with, guys. These guys, the whole public, and they say, no, they didn't actually mean it. Well, guys, this is Arab. We're not talking about the West. We're talking about Arabs that want to see Israel annihilated. The country, the area of Gaza wants to see Israel and the Jewish people annihilated, and that came very clear on October 7th. And now we have President Biden, Secretary of State Blinken, standing as buffers. I want you to understand this. They're standing as human shields between the IDF and Hamas right now. If Anthony Blinken and Joe Biden were not in the way, Hamas would have already been obliterated. This is the facts on the ground. Of course, there's a political shield, and Israel's trying to make things, as politically correct as possible. But those are the facts on the ground here. Many are asking, why did Israel invite them to start with? They didn't. From everything we can see, Israel didn't invite the president, and they didn't invite Blinken to start with. So as I said, ground invasion would have happened. And let me just say this. Why is America jumping on this like crazy? Why are we sending battleships into the field saying, and I'll tell you this, we're saying that if Lebanon enters or if Syria enters, America's there to support. Well, I'm telling you what, rockets have already flown from both, and America still is not engaged. What does that mean? Those warships and all of this stuff, are they actually protecting Israel? No, because rockets are already flying in from Lebanon and Syria and Gaza, and American ships are just sitting there. So to add to it, America has stood by a two-state solution for a long time. So two-state solution is a ridiculous thing to start with. There's 800,000 Jews living in Israel's heartland, the Judah and Samaria regions. Now, if America wants to place a two-state solution on this, it's impossible to start with, but they're taking this moment with 200 hostages, over 200 hostages, we don't have the full count yet, in Gaza, and this horrific situation, and they're using it as a tool. They believe that they can, and of course, this is all speculation on my part. I believe what's happening right now is that they are jumping on the scene to create a Palestinian state and use this incredibly horrific nightmare of a scene in Israel to push that goal forward. We have a massive chip. Israel's going to bargain, unfortunately, and America's getting involved. They're saying, stop. They're seeing a two-state solution in sight. They want to create this. They've always wanted to create this. That's why they're saying, stop. We're withholding military equipment to Israel if they don't do what we say do. That's a really tough one because they want to see an Arab state in the heart of Israel. That's the fact. So is this a helpful visit? No. Any humanitarian aid that goes into Gaza right now, every cent of it will go straight to Hamas. Anthony Blinken and President Biden well know that. The UNRWA, who's in charge of the, also incredibly pro-Hamas, unfortunately, they had UNRWA workers in Gaza that tweeted and said that Hamas was taking their supplies, plundering their warehouses. These tweets were taken down really quickly, and who knows, these people are probably not even alive anymore that tweeted these things. The fact is there. U.S. knows it, but they're doing something else behind the scene. And unfortunately, 200 of these that have been taken and are held hostage in Gaza are now being used as a token for trying to decide who can get what, right? All the world. We see even England's now coming, and all these world leaders that are coming, by the way, are only stalling Israel from getting to what they really want, and that is to annihilate Hamas for this massacre upon the Jewish people. We've got to understand this. The world leaders are engaging in order to stall. They want to stall in order to get what they all want. They all want a peace in creating a two-state solution and seeing Israel weakened on the world stage. Right now, Israel's not strengthened. Biden's visit was not a strength to Israel on the world stage. From the Arab perspective, look at all this money he passed out to the Arab world while he was here. That's not strengthening Israel. That's weakening Israel. If Israel was able and given the back to respond to the horrific acts of terrorism the way they should have, that would be a strong Israel. And if America supported it, that would be a strong America supporting a strong Israel. When we're talking about dealings and working behind the scenes and trying to appease an Arab world that is brutal and wants to see Israel annihilated, that's when we see weakness. And that's what the Arab world is seeing right now, unfortunately. So again, America's released $6 billion in Iranian assets. They've given to the Lebanese army. Don't get me wrong, guys. They're fueling the enemies. America is fueling the enemies like crazy. $236 million annual budget to the Lebanese military going straight to the hands of Hezbollah. $100 million just released with Biden's visit to the local Arabs of Judea and Samaria, West Bank, they call it, and Gaza. This is also on top of the reinstated $5 billion annual budget that Biden already gives to these Arabs of this area. And again, all of the money going from the Biden administration into these Arabs of Gaza and Judea and Samaria is all 100% illegal on the American books. It's illegal according to the Taylor Force Act. Again, all of this is absolutely illegal. Let's get to the bottom line. The bottom line is the U.S. right now under the current administration is funding Israel's enemies. Yes, they're sending aid into Israel, but then they're telling Israel, you can't bomb, you can't go and strike Lebanon right now. Nope. Lebanon's sending rockets into Israel. Israel's not allowed to strike those. They're telling Israel that they can't bomb in Gaza. They can't bomb hospitals and schools. Now, that sounds horrific. The U.S. government is telling Israel they can't bomb hospitals and schools because they say they're just hospitals and schools. Blinken and everyone in the U.S. State Department, all of them know that Hamas runs the schools, the hospitals, and under every single one of those are rocket launching centers. Everybody wonder why rockets are still, right now, 13 days in, are still flying out of Gaza. Because America does not allow Israel to strike these rocket launching centers in Gaza that are underneath schools and mosques and hospitals. They know full well how to play the international world, and America is playing with Hamas. They're playing ball with Hamas against Israel. You have to know the truth, and you have to understand what's going on right now in this area. Now, to make matters even worse, and I'm not a doomsday kind of guy, I'm very positive, but right now we've got a horrific scene on our hands, and we've got to tell you exactly what's going on. Right now, behind Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, Anthony Blinken, Lloyd Austin, behind these men is who? Because obviously we see a good front of support, but what I'm breaking down for you is the back behind it. What's going on behind it? And behind them is a whole list of Iranian agents and Hamas sympathizers. Let me give you a list. Assistant Secretary of Defense is a registered agent of Qatar. Qatar, one of the biggest supporters of Hamas. Okay. Hadi Amir, he's a State Department envoy to the PA. He's a Hamas supporter and heavy ties with Qatar. Adrian Tabi, Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations, known Iranian agent, not fired, still working. This is all right there in the American, right underneath the top level American. All of these have top level abilities to be into the top level of conversation in America. How about Mahar Bitar? He's a director of intelligence in the National Security Council. Who's this guy? He has history of supporting suicide bombings from Hamas. Yep. And former BDS student leader on a college campus. Guys, these are just the beginning of a long list of people that are sympathetic to Hamas, that are sympathetic to Iran, and that's why we're seeing such a weak America in response to what's happening here in Israel. And when America says one thing in the front but does another thing around the back, this is why. We've got a lot of people in the whole American government that are not on the front. What you see, they're right behind it, and they're pulling the strings, and that's why what's happening is happening right now. In conclusion, the U.S. right now is attempting to bypass Israel's leaders and put the IDF, to put it straight, guys, they want to put the IDF under the direct command of the State Department. You want to get this correct, this is what's going on. They want to go straight. They want to decide what the IDF does. They say you can and can't blow up a missile launching site in Gaza because it's under a mosque or it's under a hospital or it's under a school. That is evil. Israel needs to be able to attack Hamas in full right now. We've seen a massive massacre, and we know exactly who was responsible for that. Even though America won't tell you, Iran is exactly responsible for that. Hezbollah in the north, Hamas here, all working together. Of course we know. America is refusing to step to the plate right now and answer those hard questions. Israel's ready to do it, and we need to support Israel now more than ever. And